Hi everyone, welcome to Bowling Irons. So today, Steve, we're going to do a little preview on the Nottingham Forest game. So this is a big game, I would say. I think it's. I'm going to say it already. I think it's must win. I do think we have to win this if we want to be in that conversation for Europe again and continue what we've had. This feels like an absolute must-win game, as well as other games that are coming. So yeah, how do you feel about this game?
I think that's pretty spot on. If it's the same sort of thing that we've said or seen said about a number of top teams chasing this kind of spot, chasing European spots. If you want to get those, you have to beat the sort of teams who are bottom half. And look, Forest are, a dangerous team at times, and they can score goals because they have pace on the counter. But we should have the strength across the side to put them to bed. And it just depends what West Ham turn up, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the point, isn't it? If it's the West Ham turned up against Arsenal, then we're going to get turned over because that, quite frankly, was an embarrassment. As much as Moyes would like to say that's not my team, so like make that is your team. Literally, I think almost every player was signed by you. That is your team. They didn't defend like what we would expect from a Moyes team. However, that is your team, and your team failed you in that game, and the players and Moyes have to take responsibility, but the players particularly because some of them down tools in that game. It was appalling, and that's me being polite about it. But I don't want to talk about the Arsenal game. I don't want to digress to that. But the next set of games we've got are really gonna kind of winnable games. Potentially Paqueta is going to be back within probably the next 2 weeks. I would think. I don't think he'll be risked for this one. Antonio looks like he's possibly ready to go at least on the bench.
I think it's it would be remiss of us to rule out rushing players back from injury, wouldn't it? That's the West Ham.
Let's say it's a West Ham trait, isn't it? It wouldn't be a surprise if bearing in mind there seems to be a fair bit of pressure flying around if you go by what's in the press this week, that if Paqueta declares himself fit or even partially fit, you could maybe see him being part of the bench because we have such limited options. It's maybe even just putting him on the bench is there as a bit of I guess a morale boost for the players to kind of see him nearing. I think Antonio coming back could be massive, but if Antonio is fit to play, or even as in West Ham kind of normal form, if he's half fit, do you think that he should be coming into the team in light of how much we've struggled recently, in which to kind of get some sort of balance in that front line?
Normally, I'd be saying yes. But with Antonio's age and his habit of picking up injuries at times, like particularly earlier in his time at West Ham, but with his hamstring as well, I just think
hamstring is. There was always the hamstring that was going. Yeah,
I think the age he is, it's not worth risking the start. I'd definitely bring him on for about 30 minutes. I'd give him game time regardless of what the score is because he needs to get that fitness back. But I wouldn't start him. I think he's going to be a great player to have off the bench, and that's kind of the role that he needs to take up, particularly when Paqueta comes back. But I wouldn't risk him starting at the moment. I think we could finally have a situation in the next month or so where we could have Paqueta, Kudus, Antonio, Bowen all fit, and even just having a little option to change it up with someone like the mythical Cornet who doesn't feature.
I think that the fact that Ben Johnson started against Arsenal tells you everything we need to know as to Cornet's chances of ever starting a game at West Ham or even being from the bench. I think his career is done, unfortunately for us.
I really don't understand it.
It feels a bit cutting off your nose to spite your face, kind of now. It just, yes, he had a big injury, but and he hasn't necessarily performed when he has played, but it does now feel like there is a relationship thing there as well. It just can't be purely down to playing ability, because it just square pegs is something that we see a lot, and it just does not make sense,
I
really.
I think when you are such a counter-attacking based team as well, having pace is
Yeah.
key. And to play Ben Johnson over him, look, no qualms with Ben Johnson. He's asked to play a position that he doesn't play,
No.
and in an embarrassing performance. However, yeah, it's a slap in the face to Cornet, isn't it? Really.
It's beyond the slap. But not, he scored in the game against Sheffield United. He didn't play great. However, he got one chance and he buried it. And it's kind of, well, surely you want players that, bearing in mind how little we do have with the ball. If you've been on Twitter today, you would have seen some statistics that kind of really point to how little we do have the ball. And if you don't have the ball very often, you're going to have limited chances and limited opportunities to score. So therefore, having a player who can, with limited chances, score. I know he hasn't really done it at West Ham in that respect, but he did. This season he's very limited chances. One real chance he had against Sheffield United, he took. You'd think that you'd want to have that kind of player relatively fit, or even in your team, to try and take those chances. And he's not, which is quite painful to watch, really, and to kind of see a player that's just has some quality not even in. And when you even look at Forest in this game, they've got to be chomping at the bit. They've got some difficult games coming after this. They must be, like us, looking at this game going, well, that has to be a 3 points for us. We have to be aiming for 3 points. And how important do you feel it is for them having, a 1 year coming back as well? He terrorized us last season at their place. How do you feel that could have a factor, as well as, likes of Elanga being, he's been a bit in and out of form, and Gibbs White, etc.
Well, Gibbs White is a player that I'm a big fan of. I think if we are looking for someone to try and fill a Paqueta-shaped void at the end of the season, should he move on, I think he would be one of the players. Obviously, we need multiple players to come in, but he would be someone I would look at. I'm a big fan of his kind of directness, his ability on the ball, and how he just likes to kind of take on a man. I think he's a good player to watch. The problem with Forest is they have a lot of pace, but they have the size in a 1 year that can really pest the defenders.
You can imagine after the last game, they are literally going to tell a 1 year to go stand on a Gerd and have a fight with him. And even Zuma,
if a Gerd and Zuma start, then something is seriously wrong, because you just look at the performance that Mavropanos and Ogbonna put out against Arsenal, and yet that partnership looked quite strong. And look, I'm not going to say that Ogbonna should be starting every game, because I don't think he should. I think for a club pushing top four, or like wanted to chase top four, got delusions of grandeur.
Well, we flirted with it. We flirted with it just before January, and now we're not.
Yeah, look, for a club chasing top four, top six, it should never be the case of you relying on a centre back who is of that sort of age, but also more so his lack of pace.
Yeah, I'd say diminishing ability. I wouldn't necessarily, age, but when you look at how good Thiago Silva's been, but I think that injuries has taken its
level now. At the top level now, that even now it's being slowly phased out, I think. But it's the sort of thing that you have to scratch your head out when you look at the selection, and suddenly a really solid partnership is broken up and replaced by, quite frankly, Zuma and Aguerd have been absolutely embarrassing in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Zuma doesn't even look like he has one functioning knee at the moment. It's like watching freaking Forrest Gump, the early part of that movie, when he's got those big braces on his leg, and I hate that film. So you can imagine how much you can imagine how I'm feeling. But when you look at Aguerd, he just always he it's like he's a rabbit in the headlights at the moment. And we were both big fans of him in
Mhm.
France. He looks a totally different player. He just cannot head a ball to save his life.
No,
He
he only
is
looks comfortable when he's got
const-
the ball. When he's got the ball at his feet. Only
yeah,
time he looks comfortable for us at the
but
moment.
he's so easily bullied off everything as well.
Mm.
And I think for us to not be, you know, shaking it up, changing things this weekend is going to be a real eye opener, because
Yeah.
that how little faith David
Mm.
Moore has in
Well,
those players.
not that, or even just how stubborn he is, and reluctant to take and make, some would say a risk, some would say gamble, others would say just actually making the hard decision, which obviously he's made many hard decisions over his career, but if there is again the ability to play themselves into form with Zuma and again, you have to question it. Obviously,
Well, I
we
mean, one of the things that I don't think we have anything left to lose with Aguerd,
no,
and I would almost be saying throw him at central defensive mid. Just try and let him use his pace. Let him sit in front of the centre backs next to Alvarez, and he can attack the ball. And
yeah.
if he does that, then you know it's he can get on the ball, he can carry it, he can use his pace and his attempts in the air. But he doesn't have as much pressure on him because he has a back four behind him.
And let's be honest, he's a better ball player and a better passer than Suchek, who
Yeah,
was again another one. He was we almost had at times 9 men on the pitch. We've both loved Suchek over his time at West Ham. However, we've both been very honest in our appraisal that he's a box player. In our box, in the opposition box. But if you need a player to maybe to withstand pressure and to hold pressure and to take receipt of the ball and try and advance you, he's not really that player. He does take up some good positions to try and help and advance the ball and to support Sufal. However, be like with James Ward-Prowse, he's looking more sideways and backwards with his passing than he does to kind of progress it. Obviously, we have Alvarez sitting there who does try and progress it, but often he's the only one really. So kind of going into this game, obviously, we both sound crestfallen because we both sound a bit dejected, but that's because I think that's how the weeks have gone recently. It's kind of kicked West Ham fans a bit, and the drudgery of this Moyes in, Moyes out conversation. I'm not going to talk about Moyes in, Moyes out, because I think as West Ham, we need to do better in terms of on the pitch, and I think we're going to win and lose as West Ham, regardless of who's at the helm, regardless of who's on the pitch. But who would you like, or what would you like to see for this Nottingham Forest game? Would you like to see a change, a kind of real mixing it up in the lineup to maybe give some players a bit of I guess, a deserved kick up the arse, or do you kind of want to see a bit of the bit of the kind of the norm mixed with maybe maybe a little bit more intent,
I
arguably?
think there has to be a change. I don't think you can concede 6 and then just keep the defense the same way it was. I think any team would be embarrassed to do that. Um, we've seen Arsenal get beaten 8-2, but it's like even then, they were playing against truly world class teams, and I don't, Arsenal played well. I don't think they were a world class team. I think they have a couple of world class players. That's not sour grapes. That's just my opinion. But
Let's put it this way: I don't expect Arsenal to win their next game by about 6 goals, and I'm pretty sure they're not playing a top level team in their next game, and I don't expect them to go and do what they did to us because, quite frankly, we just did not turn up. They're playing Burnley. I don't expect Burnley at Turf Moor to get turned over 6-0. If they do, they do. But I don't see that happening. I don't see Burnley turning up and doing exactly what we did, and what we did was borderline negligible capitulation. I think
it was,
is a
look,
compliment.
yeah, I think there has to be ramifications for a performance like that. I think it's what the fans demand as well. There has to be consequences, and we always have said that the players in form are the ones you pick. Well, if Zuma and Aguerd walk out, if Aguero's playing anywhere other than central defensive mid, which he has played a couple of times as well, not just football
Just
manager.
throwing it out as a random, yeah.
Yeah, he has played there a couple of times. He played there a few times for Rennes as well, and I think if he's playing anywhere other than there, or he's starting over anyone like Mavropanos or Obono, then questions have to be raised about why that is. Because if we were willing to listen to offers for him in January, why are we sticking by him? Yeah. Because it's clear that we need a major rehaul in the summer, particularly at the back. You and I have long said that we kind of paper over the cracks in defence and we do the bare minimum to invest there. This game against Forest is going to be a really interesting one to see just how much work we need to do, because we already know that ideally we have to replace the first team centre backs. We have to have 2 starting centre backs. Mavropanos, I really liked at Stuttgart. He's not quite had a run of games here, which he deserves. Maybe he could be that starting centre back going forward. But to look at it for a team pushing top 8, got it right this time, for a team pushing top 8, you have to look at that and say, I need 2 starting centre-backs. Whether that's going to be a case of you go out and you get Tosin from Everton on a free, or you just get him, you get another player at centre-back, depending on who goes down or what happens. You need to be looking at strength in depth, quality-wise. So I think there has to be big changes, not just this weekend, but also going forward. And I think if we do lose, or if we get turned over, if we concede a few more goals, because that could happen. If we concede early and the heads drop, then that's going to be really tough one to defend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's probably a good thing for the players that this game is away, because that means we can set up arguably in our normal style. Forest are going to come at us because it's a big game for them. It's a must win for them, and also a game that they probably think they're most winnable at their next set of games. So again, things may play into our hands that actually help us in which to go out there. But we do need to see that whoever steps across that line to go onto the pitch really needs to stand up. And the likes of Phillips just hasn't. You can't even say he's flattered to deceive. He's not even done anything. At the moment, he's deceived his standing as a football player. Souček, he does what he does for us, and he's great. But again, he's not necessarily helping us progress. Ward-Prowse in recent weeks has also been too sideways and backwards. And as we said at the time, our main reservation is bringing him in, playing him as he's been playing. It's like replacing Mark Noble. We never needed to replace Mark Noble. We moved past that in the last year. And as great as Mark Noble was for us, he would slow down play. He would pass it backwards and sideways, and we wouldn't get much progression.
But it's not just that. He's so exposed when he is.
Yeah. When he's deep,
when he's out of position. He doesn't have the pace to track back. He doesn't have the strength to knock someone off the ball.
Oh, just look at the Casemiro goal. That was embarrassing for me, because he had every opportunity in which to win the ball if he'd have challenged for the ball. Instead, he looked at Casemiro and thought, I've got the minerals to knock him off the ball. And it's like, you don't. Just, what are you doing? It's like, for me, defensively, in certain situations, he just doesn't have the awareness of what's around him defensively. He's brilliant on the ball.
It's fine. That's fine if you have, a Fofana, or you have a Manu Kone next to you who's going to do that defensive cover and then look to play you in. But we don't. We have Thomas Souček, and as good as Souček is, you can't have as good as he is at what he does and specializes in. You can't have both Souček and Ward-Prowse on the same pitch if you don't have, at least 2 really athletic midfielders to help cover them. And you expose yourself, you leave yourself open to exposure so many times when that happens, because either Souček is technically exposed or Ward-Prowse is physically exposed, which sounds a bit weird, but you know, he in terms of his height, in terms of his pace, he's so easy to beat.
Yeah.
And
And we're often seeing our midfielders played directly through down past him because he is maybe a little bit. I don't want to say naive defensively, but I think his awareness to what's around him isn't always as good. I think he's great when we're using him in that more forward or advanced role to press. However, when we try to then sit back and to hold positions, our midfield is so porous, and we only really have one midfielder in there who seems to have intent to go and press and want to win the ball, and that creates its own problems and errors, shall we say, and that's why our defense is so exposed. And that could maybe explain, well, partially does explain why Zuma and Aged are exposed so much and why we are conceding, I think, roughly at the moment with them two goals a game, near enough. However, also the reason they're exposed is because at the moment they have an inability in which to do the simple things right and to defend appropriately. We could probably moan about what's that the team at the moment all day long, but it's probably best to try and to round this up. It's not been the most positive reflection or review or preview, but what's your gut feel for this game? What do you think we kind of the score's going to be and kind of how this game's going to go?
I just hope we don't get trounced again. To be honest, I think if we do have Antonio back fit, I think we'll cause some problems. I think if Kudus is on it, we will score at least 2 goals.
Yeah.
If Kudus and Bowen are on it, then I think we win it. But I'm going to go 2-1 to us, just to try and be quite positive. I think there is no way on earth that David Moyes is going to sit back and just go and just let anyone forget about the 6-0.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way on earth that's going to happen. Whatever you think of him, whether you think he's a dinosaur, negative, we're not going to go into that. He's just not going to let them forget that there was a 6-0. He's going to demand more of them. And I think, I think we could get a bit of stroke of luck or something, but I think maybe 2-1.
Yeah, I'm going to be positive and say 2-1. I know we've not been positive throughout this whole thing, but if I'm going to try and be a little positive, well, I would say that the first 30 minutes against Arsenal, actually, we were pretty good. We created a couple of half chances. We seemed to impress before we started to get negative and we conceded the goals. We showed at least some intent, and also we showed some good organisation and some good kind of passages of play. So if we can harness that for a majority of the game against Nottingham Forest, I do think we have enough to do it. And Forest, a bit like us, tend to have a mistake in them. But when it comes, we need to capitalise. I think that is the main thing. We have to, because of the way we tend to play, and we don't necessarily create a huge amount of chances or big chances in games, and we don't have a lot of the ball. We are going to have to be incredibly clinical. What I do want to see is changes to that central defensive pairing. I don't want to see either Zuma or Aged start, in all honesty, and I've been very critical of Bonner over the last year or so, but he should start as well as Mavropanos. Our fullbacks should remain as they were, in my opinion. I think Soufal tried his hardest against Arsenal, but he was fighting again, a fight that he was never going to win. As you say, if Kudus and Bowen are feeling the game, I think obviously we have a good fighter's chance. I do get the feeling Antonio might start.
I don't mind that. I think if that's
as long as Paul Prowse isn't playing left wing, like I can't abide that. The first time it happened, I said to you and Frankie, "This is going to be an absolute nightmare," and it was awful. And then he did it again against Arsenal after we were getting absolutely pummeled. So as long as we don't see him there, I personally think that now he needs to commit to Phillips or not. I don't think we can bring Phillips on from the bench. I don't think he's going to get any kind of fitness or any kind of confidence as it is. But Phillips has also got to wake up and realise he's not at Man City. He's not at Leeds, and he needs to perform.
One thing I'm going to say is that Phillips has kind of not shown his minerals, because I don't think that's very fair, but I think big questions have to be asked about him. If I think Pep Guardiola he's even said that he was wrong to call him out publicly about his weight, and the mental knock on that can have for him. I don't want to speculate about, because it's not my place to, but that's the kind of impact that sort of comment can have. But let's face it, he does not look anywhere near match fit. But I would even question his overall fitness. And I think, look, I'm not going to go into a weight-based comment because that's not very fair.
And I certainly can't talk about weight, so I'm not going to.
But look, he just looks so far off fitness-wise.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think at the moment there's no way anyone signs him. There's no way anyone signs him for more than £15 million, apart from maybe Leeds if they come back up and they want to, appease fans. But I think he just looks so off the pace, and I would almost rather play Souček as a centre back and just tell him to get head on the end of everything. Because
in all honesty, I think if we were playing Souček at centre back, I don't think we'd have any qualms or problems about Souček. I think in midfield there are reasons to be frustrated. I think if you were playing him as a pure centre back, he would do everything you need to do. He'll put his body on the line. He'll defend every single cross, and I think we would be lauding Souček saying that man should be a captain for West Ham. I genuinely do. I think if he was centre back for us, that would be our opinion.
As I kind of was leaning towards, I think you either put Aguerd there, you put either Mavropanos there because he can play central defensive mid as well, so we have that versatility, or you just go with another 3-man midfield. But for me, Phillips just I don't think he's done anywhere near enough, or he's not showing anywhere near enough in terms of fitness either to start in our midfield, and that should worry people.
Yeah, it's the jogging back, and I know we said we were going to end it. We've ended up having a little bit of a moan again, but I do feel that Moyes is at the crossroads now with Phillips. He's going to have to commit to him sooner or later, because just bringing him on as a sub in 60th minute is not going to get any fitness, and we're coming into the tail end of the season, so he's kind of going to have to commit to the man that he has chased for 2 years, or he's going to have to essentially use him as a very, very expensive sub. You're getting paid more money than Danny Ings, which is outrageous, and it's outrageous Danny Ings gets paid as much as he has been. But yeah, we've got to see change. I think we need to see change in midfield. We need to see change in defence, and we definitely need a change in attack, because we need someone to play in that left wing position, and it's going to have to be Cornet. If not Cornet, it has to be Antonio. I don't think that's up for debate. It has to be one of those two play. Otherwise, again, you're setting up Ben Johnson to fail, which isn't fair on the kid. He played well at right wing when he came on the other week.
What confused me more than anything is that you have Emerson, a player who is quite comfortable at left wing.
Yep.
Why would you play Johnson?
There's something we also talked about, didn't we? We even said, why would you not play Johnson at left back, put Emerson at left wing? But this is, again, the whole point of the square pegs that we constantly talk about. You have players who can play in positions, who are not playing in those positions, and players that are not familiar are going in those positions, being asked to do things that actually isn't part of their game. But let's hope the Arsenal game is the wake-up call West Ham needed as a whole, from staff to players, etc. But if that happens again, I think we're going to be less positive than we are right now. But look, we said 2-1. Let's go back to being positive. We think we could win this. We do feel that we've got enough in the locker, especially with Kudus and Bowen. Given half chance, they are the two that are likely to finish. And if Antonio is back, I think Antonio could cause a lot of problems for Forest as well. So let's end on that note. A little bit of positivity there. 2-1 we're going for. Let's hope that that's what happens, and we get our first win of the new year, and then we can start to be a bit more positive and look a bit more up the table than looking kind of around us and down. But yeah, we'll see you all again soon. 2-1. I'm praying for it. But yeah, until then, Sloth, you know what we need to do now. Come on, you guys.